Oh boy, there's been some news going on in the Lucasfilm company. There has been some news. So, as some of you may have heard, but there's been a report going around, apparently on the Walt Disney World Magic forums or something.com, that someone named WDW Pro, who's a well-known member and was the poster of this forum, made a very interesting thing talking about the Disney company regarding its earnings on Monday at 5:27 p.m. And now this talks about the whole earnings and the reports and all that going on, and especially regarding the money they've lost due to the COVID crisis and all that depressing stuff. But there was an interesting thing that was going on being mentioned that really tipped everyone's interest in wondering, is something going on backstage that we're not seeing? So, a lot of people don't like Kathleen Kennedy. We've kind of established that. She backstabbed George Lucas pretty much. She sided with Bob Iger, and Bob Iger at least admitted he screwed up. Granted, he's not going to probably fix it, but he admitted he screwed up and apologized, I think. But anyways, so yeah, you got all this going on, and fans just had enough dealing with Kathleen Kennedy and her obvious agenda she's been pushing. And I've had my gripes with Kathleen Kennedy as a producer in charge of this whole thing. Like, she's not Kevin Feige, she's not Dave Filoni, who can come up with who can create great story content with a group of writers and everything. And all she seems to have is an agenda going on about feminism and all that. Like, I'm all for feminism, I'm all for equal rights, but when people think of the word feminism, it's the feminazi mentality where it's all about female are the power and men are the slaves and everything, or some BS like that, which is very contradictory to what feminism is. But moving on from geopolitical stuff going on in the world nowadays and people being crazy, let's go on to talking about things that are crazy. So, yeah, so remember when John Ferreira was announced to be involved in Star Wars, and one of those projects was indeed The Mandalorian? Well, it seems that that was probably Kathleen Kennedy's biggest career shot she ever had, because Ferreira is doing pretty well for Star Wars. Dave Filoni's doing pretty well for Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy is a completely different beast. You see, we already know. A lot of things didn't work out the way they were supposed to. Like, Star Wars Resistance wasn't really that much of a hit for people. Forces of Destiny were so-and-so. Galaxy of Adventures was so-and-so. Solo was a financial disappointment for many people at Disney. And the sequel trilogy just started off okay, but then veered off into insanity, and then could have gone an interesting route, but chickened out at the last minute. Had a bunch of stuff they wanted to do, but cut it out because interesting concepts is complicated. Or women or something like that. Feminazi politics or something like that. And then there was rumors going around that Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger's relationship behind the scenes was deteriorating, and it seems that that might in fact be the case. So WDW Pro posted on this forum a comprehensive talk about the entire stuff going on in Disney's corporation, but it's number 2 in this post that's really interesting. Here, I'll read it over and then chime in with some of my commentary because the peanut gallery deserves that. The ongoing battle over Lucasfilm's direction continues, with Kathleen Kennedy and John Ferrari factions fighting over the studio. It's fairly well known at this point that the beef between Kennedy and Iger is real, given that Iger has essentially ignored her in his memoirs. Bird. It's also hard to lose sight of how many projects Kennedy has seen fail at Lucasfilms. Star Wars Resistance, Forces of Destiny, Galaxy of Adventure, Solo, the sequel trilogy falling in revenues with each release, while Ferreira seemingly struck it out of the park with the Mandalorian series that even Bob Iger was coming in and giving creative suggestions for and taking notes on each episode. Buried in the lead of the Thor Ragnarok director, directing a Star Wars movie, which has been said Kathleen Kennedy has no creative control over, so her name's just going to be slapped on there and everyone will be like, oh, okay. But she has no real involvement. It was confirmation of the female-centric Star Wars series being helmed by former Weinstein personal assistant Headland. And this is where things get very dark and interesting. But be ready, because it looks almost certain that new narrative is being pushed by Kennedy loyalists in Lucasfilm. And that narrative is that Headland was only a personal assistant for 1 year, that being against her or her series is misogynistic, mean, and unfair. And I'm thinking, oh god, we're going Ghostbusters, aren't we? We're really fucking going Ghostbusters here. 2016, remember what happened when Sony accused anyone who didn't want to reboot and the gender swap, like... Okay, I did not watch the Ghostbusters movie. I have never watched any of the Ghostbusters stuff. But I got why people were so mad over the idea of a reboot. Because why would you reboot this? Why would you want to change something that many people thought was already good enough as it is, and the sequel didn't work out so well? Like, even Doug Walker came up with a better idea, and we all know what our thoughts on that guy is. But that's a different matter that I do not wish to discuss, or else I get the channel awesome people coming after me. But yeah, here's the thing. This is the idea that if you are against the idea of this series where it just has a bunch of female characters being the lead roles, you will be labeled a misogynistic swine, basically, a misogynistic person. And I'm like, Ahsoka, did everyone just forget, did Kathleen Kennedy forget that everyone, guys and girls, girls and guys, the being between all love Ahsoka? Like, there were a lot that hated her at first, and I was understanding of that, but did they just forget? I know Dave Filoni didn't forget, he always talks about Ahsoka, but did everyone just forget that, well, Ahsoka was a thing, and everyone loves her? Everyone loves her. Everyone wants her around. They didn't just say, oh, well, she sailed. She dropped by 2 points. We got to kill her off. Like, and Dave Filoni even admitted that there was a fear going on back then when there was rumors going around that, oh, well, we might kill her off in order to fuel Anakin's stuff, which would have pissed off Gail Simone probably. But, by citing the whole, she's not in Revenge of the Sith, so how is she here if she's not in Revenge of the Sith? Even though there's, like, a massive galaxy and there's, like, 100 different explanations, I'm just surprised they went with that instead of the predictable route, which credit to George Lucas and Dave Filoni for their creative endeavors on this, and much respect to them. But the idea that this is the narrative that Kathleen Kennedy might push, where she'll label anyone who doesn't agree with her vision or anyone who sides with her are a misogynistic male-dominating society that thinks that all men are pigs, and anyone who's against the women is basically a messiah being crucified and burned at the stake. But I'm thinking to myself, oh God, you gotta be kidding me. And okay, the Weinstein personal assistant thing, I was like, okay, I know about Harvey Weinstein, what happened with him, but what does the former assistant have to do with this? I don't know the full details. I could be wrong on this, so if anyone wants to cite that in the comments, fine, whatever. But I don't know what's the problem with someone who used to work for Weinstein but doesn't anymore, who just happens to be the personal assistant. Like, I get if there was some big secret thing going on and that was the narrative they were pushing, fine, but, like, this whole idea that, well, you're just a misogynistic pig because you don't like women in Star Wars, and I'm thinking, okay, one, I am not against women having equal rights. I am not against women having lead roles. I must stress, Ashley Eckeson's Ahsoka, which I must stress was made by guys, but no one cared about a guy making a female character. Like, everyone just wants good stories. Everyone wants a good quality story. Like, I'm not saying the prequels or even the original trilogies had commentary about political stuff, but you want to know the difference between what Kathleen Kennedy did and what George Lucas did? Here's an idea. This might come as shocking. I think I might be hunted down for this. It was for the story. Yeah, it was the main narrative of the story, but it wasn't like the let's shove it in your face, let's shove it in your face, let's shove it in your face. Like, it was actually good. It was playing commentary on real stuff, but nothing about force feeding an agenda that was really insane. Like, some people, like, there were people who had concerns and fears about stuff going on back during the Vietnam War, during the Bush presidency, during the War on Terror, that George Lucas wanted to tell a story that just happens to have those political undertone satire, but doesn't really do it in a way that is very jarring and annoying. Like the robot from Solo, who's a for some reason droid activist, which I've never seen before. Like, it could have been interesting, but it wasn't. It was just annoying and paints the idea that Lando was into droids and they never established that ever again, even though it was later revealed that, oh, he had a wife and kid, and then the kid joined the First Order by abduction. Yeah, that day is coming. I swear to you. But yeah, the narrative they're pushing, where this is going ahead and doing this, is like whatever. And this is what has been said here. Again, this is a conflict that Disney doesn't want. They don't want conflict over a hire that lavishly praised Weinstein. Okay, now that makes sense. Deleted hundreds of tweets at the same time as a leak about her project and made no dirt on Iger and Eisner. With all that said, Kennedy has essentially gotten her way time after time, outplaying Iger, even if she's been hammered by segments of the fans, mostly by hiring and developing strong loyalty within her brand. So, Kathleen Kennedy is trying to play games with Bob Iger, the most powerful man in the world, with the most powerful company, and by God damn it, I'm seriously hoping his last initiative before he finally steps down as the CEO of the company is, Kathleen Kennedy, you're fired! And go all Vince McMahon on her and just fire her outright. But like, it seems like that the higher ups are making it more difficult. But like, oh god, this whole situation is just a mess. It seems like now it's like brewing. A civil war is about to break out in Lucasfilm. I'm just worried what's going to happen with Dave Filoni and those who actually want to make stories for Star Wars. Like, I would be all for John Ferreira went ahead and took over. Like, I've been saying Dave Filoni should take over because he at least gets Star Wars. He gets what fans want. He wants to tell a story. He has a personal connection with him. John Ferreira loves Star Wars. He clearly wants a connection with the Star Wars universe, but certain people don't want to have that position because he's a man, apparently, or something stupid. And Kathleen Kennedy, like, okay, I saw this shirt saying the Force is female, and I'm thinking, okay, I know what she's trying to say, but it just irates me. I was thinking to myself, the Force is everyone. That's what the Force was. It's indiscriminate. I'm like, there are those who don't have the Force, but more like they can't interact with the Force, but they can feel it in them. Like the monk Chirrut Imwe, I am one with the Force is with me. Even though he's not a Jedi, yet he feels the Force in him. He's pretty much a Force person who believes in the Force and follows its religion and ideologies. But yeah, hearing this, that now Bob Iger's slowly but surely starting to favor John Ferreira over Kathleen Kennedy, and Kathleen Kennedy had to basically play gymnastic politics to try and keep her position. And meanwhile, I'm wondering, what the hell is Dave Filoni going to do about it? Like, is he on John Ferreira's side? Is he on Kathleen Kennedy's side? Like, and really, I don't know what's the end result going to be from all this. Like if John Ferreira takes over, I would be interested to see where they go with this, but it's like the Dan DiDio firing. Like, what's going to happen next? We don't know what's going to happen next. mainly my biggest concern, and this was the one I really wanted to talk about, was what happens with Star Wars. Like if Kathleen Kennedy is booted and they go ahead and bring John Ferrer as the new head and basically put him in a Kevin Feige position to headline the Star Wars universe from now on, and probably have Dave Filoni as his apprentice because that would be freaking awesome. I was like, would they reboot the whole thing, or would they honestly give in to that idea of doing a rebirth that I've talked about just 24 hours ago? It's just, yeah, it's an interesting time for Star Wars and its universe because now you don't know what's happening, and you got all these big projects going on with the High Republic era stuff, all the Marvel comics, all the TV shows they want to do, Clone Wars ending, Mandalorian season 2 and now 3 happening. So now it's like, with all this internal power struggle and any internal politics going on, it's looking like there's a big shift going to happen. Like, everyone, a lot of people wanted Dan DiDio gone. Like, he did some good things, I'll acknowledge that. Like, Peter Thomason, or whatever his last name was, he wrote what maybe we would consider the best Superman run that ever happened, and Dan DiDio was like, fuck that, I'm going to get Brian Michael Bendis over, and we're going to screw him over. And screw up everything he did. Like, age up John Kent, because that made sense. Or screw over Jeff Johns and screw over everyone else. That tries to give a slightest hint of optimism. So, yeah. Dan DiDio finally got fired for his behavior behind the scenes, apparently, and whatnot by Warner Brothers, so I'm pretty sure Bob Iger's trying to find some information to fire Kathleen Kennedy over, but he needs something that can guarantee his protection, John Ferrer's protection, what it seems like that has on Eisner as well. So, yeah, we're going to have to see where this goes. Let's hope everyone else steers clear from this, but, yeah, with factions forming in Lucasfilms. In fact, I'm surprised there's not a pro-George Lucas faction trying to see if they can get the guy back, because, I mean, like, granted, he wasn't really, was the great, what, well, I'm like, granted, he did make his mistakes, but at the very least, he cared. So, yeah, whatever on that, but I just wanted to talk about this stuff I've been hearing. It's going to be a very interesting time. I'm curious to know where they're going to go with this, but it looks like that the Thor Ragnarok director is going to have his Star Wars movie that does not have Kathleen Kennedy having creative involvement in it. That's pretty much the only known thing that's being talked about, and it seems like The Mandalorian's without Kathleen Kennedy's supervision or chain or creative chain she likes to link up. But, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time for this. We'll see where this goes from here on out. But those were my thoughts on the rumored civil war brewing at Lucasfilms. This was Neo Reality, and if you feel like, comment, subscribe, and donate, stay tuned for more.